Tonight, chaos erupts outside some supermarkets as people come out in droves on the first day of resumption of essential services. Movement within the country is now governed by a new set of rules, and police investigate the cause of a blaze at the old police headquarters. The details of these stories and more are coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Tuesday, the 7th of April, 2020. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. We're on Flow Channel 117. The broadcast is also being simulcast on Kiss FM and on our Caribbean Hot FM mobile app. I'm lovely St. Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. The government allowed essential businesses to reopen on Tuesday, the 7th of April, following a 24-hour lockdown that commenced on the 1st of April. The result was a mass exodus from homes to essential businesses like supermarkets and banks. In some areas, the scenes were very alarming given the disregard for social distancing. Scores of people flocked to supermarkets, banks, pharmacies, and other establishments that were allowed to open as the 24-hour curfew shifted to 10 hours. Despite advice to stick to protocol and not panic, given that there are 4 days during which some commercial activities are allowed to take place, people came out in full force. The scenes were chaotic, with little regard being paid to social distancing. From very early, this Massy worker at Massy on the boulevard had her work cut out for her in trying to get people to comply with social distancing protocol.
We will serve everybody, but you have to practice social distancing. If you do not practice social distancing, we are not going to open the store. Please follow the right procedures.
Outside the store later on, the police had quite a challenge getting even essential service members and other members of the general public to comply with the 6 feet distance requirement.
I am the second normal person to enter the line. I have no problem with the essential workers. They came, they made one swarm here without anybody saying anything. All I'm asking them is to make a decent line so we can enter the supermarkets. Police officers, everybody just clustering there.
But everybody claiming to be essential.
Yeah, but they still have to maintain order and maintain the 6 feet distance.
We have been, unless you guys are right? Essential workers, you have the on one side, essential over here. It's not essential,
Imagine the regular citizens of your mind when the nurses are asking people to do social distancing.
Other members of the public corroborated the story that some essential service members did in fact contribute to the chaos seen outside supermarkets.
I've been here from 5 o'clock this morning, and it was about 3 persons on the line. When I got here, there was no issue with the social distancing. Everybody kept their distance. Everybody adhered to the protocol. It's later in the morning when certain essential workers came through, there was chaos, and right now if you have to take a look at the back, it's very chaotic. They're not adhering to the social distancing. It's a cluster up there. There are officers here, but I don't think the officers are really taking the steps and the measures to ensure that the essential workers keep their social distancing. It is people on top of people, right? And we just caused a big chaos out here for nothing. I could have been at my home long because I was here since 5 o'clock and I'm yet to move and I'm the 3rd person on the line, right? I'm not pleased with that at all.
This elderly citizen was fuming. He says there was no regard being shown for those who had ventured out from as early as 5 a.m.
I just want the elderly people that just come, go at the back. Go at the back. Because people was there from since 5 o'clock, waiting for them to open. So right now they could go at the back because they say elderly person first.
Members of the public still have 3 more days to get essentials, but officials are urging them not to rush out and risk exposure. Only venture out if it is absolutely necessary. St. Lucia's COVID-19 response has entered another phase, a return to limited commercial activity for a period of 4 days, but under some very strict protocols. Economic Development Minister Guy Joseph, Acting Commissioner of Police Milton Daisy, and Senior Communications Officer Nicole MacDonald laid out the new rules meant to restrict movement by citizens to ensure that there is not continued community spread of COVID-19. Following the announcement of the island's curfew hours being reduced, as well as the reopening of essential services, namely banks and supermarkets, a new zoning system has been implemented by the government. In the live announcement that was made on Monday night, it was revealed that the stipulations of the system include a national zone map for COVID-19, which features 2 zones, a northern zone and a southern zone.
Zone 1 is the northern zone. It includes Gros Islet, Barbonneau, Castries, Dennery, and Ancillary. Persons in those zones should, and the communities in those zones should basically be using services within their zone. Zone 2 includes Canneries, Soufrière, Soisel, Labrie, Vieux-Fort, Micoud, and Poilé, and all the communities in those zones should be using services within your zones. People are encouraged not to venture out of your zones, only if you are an essential service, quickly to replenish supplies or in case of an emergency.
Economic Development Minister Guy Joseph says people need to adhere to the rules and stay in their zone.
It means that any transaction you are going to do within that time must be done within the zone that you are in. So if you live in Ancillary and you have a business transaction to do, and note that the business transactions may be just to get some finance from the bank, to buy your basic needs, food, maybe cooking gas, for the farmers, maybe to get gas for their vehicles. It is not open for everybody.
He announced that special allowances will be made for essential services.
For essential workers who may be coming from one zone, these essential people would be allowed to cross from one zone to another. And those farmers, for example, who have their farms they live in one area, but their farm is in another area, they would have by now collected the letter from the extension officers, or they would have had a pass from NEMO that would allow them to move from one area to another. So we want the people to understand the reason for the zone is because we still want to limit movement and activity.
The other stipulations include minibuses can only carry half of their capacity. That means a 14-seater can only carry 7 passengers. Food establishments will be open, but only for takeaway and delivery services. There will be no movement outside your zone. People circulating false information can be traced and arrested. Curfew remains in effect from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. The 24-hour curfew is in effect for Good Friday and Easter Sunday. Minister Guy Joseph says further announcements will be made for next week. He urges for stipulations to be adhered to and says if they are, St. Lucia can see a return to some sense of normalcy sooner rather than later. Acting Police Commissioner Milton Daisy urged citizens to take Tuesday as their grace period and warned that moving forward, police will be strictly enforcing the new COVID-19 protocols. Acting Police Commissioner Milton Daisy has explicitly stated that the time slot given to the public to get their essentials should not be seen as a free pass to engage in social gatherings or have fun. He indicated that only people with legitimate reasons will be allowed to cross checkpoints, and in many cases, ID and proof of address will be needed.
In terms of the vehicles, like the utility vehicles like Lucilec, Flow, Digicel, and so on, these marked, once the vehicle is a marked vehicle, you would have no problems at those checkpoints, because somebody may be the office may be in Castries and going to attend to some emergency down. So these vehicles, it is easy to be identified. And as I've said before, persons would need to have something to show, especially if you don't have, if the vehicle has a pass, it is no issues. However, if you do not carry the pass, you would need to have an ID indicating that you're from that area. Probably also what we can use is a bill indicating that, because some persons, your ID may have you are from Castries, however, you have changed location and is living in the south. So if proof that you are from the south and then you are just returning to the south, probably these things could be done.
He says everyone should be mindful. He says everyone should be mindful that the country, like the rest of the world, is still at war with COVID-19 and the island is still under curfew.
The aim is to have persons to remain in their zone so that we limit the spread of COVID. That is the main aim. And if we could recall the PM's address, it was more you were going out to get cash so that you could purchase your necessities, that is food and fuel. That was the aim. So once you have done that, we are urging persons to return to their homes. That is, you are still under quarantine and then you are still under curfew. It just gives that little window of opportunity for persons to carry on their business. It is not a free for all where persons get an opportunity to escape home.
The commissioner also had this warning for mischief makers who continue to incite fear and panic with fake news.
We have seen on social media persons being mischievous and circulating false information and so on, asking persons to desist from that. You can be traced. You can be traced. And if somebody send it to you, please do not forward it, because you can be traced and you could be arrested. We had a situation where somebody who even had a face mask, we were able to identify that person and the person is arrested now. So persons, please desist from doing this.
The commissioner is calling on the public to follow the protocols. He said Tuesday would be the only day that officers would be lenient with the public because it would be a learning experience. He warned that on the following days, officers will be enforcing the rules in a strict manner. Firefighters were summoned to the scene of a fire on Bridge Street, Castries at about 8:40 a.m. Tuesday. Officials say a suspicious fire destroyed several old diaries and old registers at the unoccupied former police headquarters building. The fire service responded with 2 fire trucks. Fire officer Stacey Joseph tells us more.
At approximately 8:25 a.m. on Tuesday, 7th April, units from the Castries and Babonneau fire stations responded to a fire call at police headquarters, Bridge Street, Castries. Responding officers reported that the fire was contained in 2 rooms which contained paper and other combustible materials. The fire was promptly extinguished using one of the seawater hydrants. No one was reported injured as it relates to this incident.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Still to come, a date has been set for the COVID-19 fundraising telethon. New transport rules and the significant impact on the bottom line of drivers. And hear how the government is planning to put your taxes to work. That and more coming up after the break.